listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes right here on episode 23 of the WrestleHavoc Podcast, of course, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the frickin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. We have a lot of things to discuss right here on episode 23 of the podcast. Of course, we are going to be talking about LA Knight. Reportedly, there are plans for LA Knight, and apparently Vince McMahon now likes LA Knight, which is very weird to say because this is the same guy that turned him into Max Dupree. We're also going to be talking about Death Before Dishonor. Yes, I did catch up on some of the matches for Death Before Dishonor. I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on that. Apparently, there were heavy changes on the show. Of course, Summerslam is shaping up to be a great show. Of course, Summerslam is going to be taking place a week from, I believe, this Saturday. And it's going to be taking place at Ford Field in Detroit, of course, main evented by Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. We also have Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. That match is official as well. I'm going to be talking about the card shaping up. I'm also going to be talking about the ticket sales for WrestleMania 40. Apparently, of course, tickets are going to be going on sale August 18th. We got WrestleMania 41 news. Apparently, the frontrunner for WrestleMania 41 has been revealed. We're going to be talking about Adam Cole and MJF, how they are the top sellers in AEW right now. Of course, people in WWE want to push forward with NXT to beat AEW Dynamite in the ratings and much more. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things right here on episode 23 of the WrestleHavoc Podcast. Before I get on with all this craziness, of course, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the freaking referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Of course, if you guys had missed it, the AEW Collision review is up on the channel. I talk about CM Punk confronting Ricky Starks after his controversial win the week prior, and of course Ricky Starks winning the Owen Hart Cup tournament. It's safe to say that Ricky Starks is literally just going upward regarding Collision, and he's definitely a main focus on the show, and it looks like Ricky Starks is on the verge of turning heel. Overall, it was a great show. I actually attended the show. I'm going to be I basically give my thoughts on my experience at the show. I was actually shown on camera numerous times at the show, so that was fun, but overall, Collision was a phenomenal show. If you guys haven't checked out the AEW Collision review, the link will be in the description below. Also, the Friday Night SmackDown review is up on the channel. Of course, I talk about the rules of engagement between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, leading to tribal combat at SummerSlam. Very, very, very interesting developments. Of course, we're going to be having Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns in Detroit at Ford Field for SummerSlam, and it's going to be a phenomenal match. But overall, the SmackDown show wasn't really a good show. I didn't really enjoy the show for what it was. Really, the Bloodline segment was really the only thing that was really keeping the show for me, and everything else on the show was just not important. But if you guys haven't checked out the SmackDown review, of course, the link will also be in the description of this video as well. Of course, we're going to be talking about a lot of things right here on episode 23. One side note, I know Raw actually happened last night. I will be uploading the Raw review before the end of today as well, so I will be giving you guys my Raw review, so be on the lookout for that as well. I know episode 23, usually when it's not a pay-per-view week, I usually air the main WrestleHavoc Podcast show on a Sunday, but with me being at the show and me being at work and then taking notes for Collision because I wanted to do the Collision review, I'm kind of behind on a lot of this stuff, and yesterday I was literally doing nothing all day, which is kind of a me problem if you really think about it. I really need to be more consistent with what I'm doing, but I want to be giving you guys episode 23 because really there's a lot of news that came out. You know, I was planning on uploading episode 23 maybe around Friday or Saturday, but there wasn't really a lot of news. And then the LA Knight news dropped, and I was like, hey, maybe that can be the main thumbnail for the show. So I added a lot of stuff on the show, and now I'm going to be giving you guys this show. But we're going to be kicking off the show with LA Knight. WWE reportedly has plans for LA Knight at SummerSlam. These are very, very, very interesting developments. I am reading this from WrestlingNews.co's website. Of course, the insider wrestling account Boozer Wrestling, which has broken past WWE stories, reported that WWE is that Knight will, quote-unquote, have a certain segment or angle during SummerSlam, and it could switch to a match. It's very unclear who will also be a part of the segment or match with LA Knight. WWE holds SummerSlam on Saturday, August 5th, 2023 at Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan, which will air on Peacock. And yeah, they reportedly have plans. Of course, he is not on the SummerSlam card, which in my opinion, I think it's a crime that he's not on the SummerSlam card, but it is what it is. But we have more news regarding LA Knight, and this is according to Wade Keller of the PW Torch, or the Pro Wrestling Torch. Of course, apparently, LA Knight is in for a big push, but management and colleagues are on guard that his backstage attitude will shorten, or could shorten, his push. This is a very, very, very weird story, and I question a little bit of Wade Keller when it comes to this story, but I may be totally wrong. PW Torch sources indicate that Vince McMahon has grown to be a fan of his, and Paul Levesque already was a fan of LA Knight, which is pretty obvious because Triple H, a.k.a. Paul Levesque, was the guy that hired LA Knight a couple years ago in the first place. Of course, last year when McMahon had decided to end his role at Max Dupree and replace him with his storyline sister Maxine in the Maximum Male Models faction, Paul Levesque soon took over creative after McMahon resigned. Levesque quickly rechristened him as LA Knight, the act Levesque oversaw in NXT. Knight has a long-running reputation for rubbing people the wrong way behind the scenes and just being, quote-unquote, bad at backstage politics. Those who know him will tend to like him, and some of them will have spoken on his behalf when Knight gives a first bad impression. Knight's surging crowd reactions and social media popularity have landed him on the radar of Levesque and McMahon as being a candidate for a big push after SummerSlam, PW Torch sources indicate. By all indications, despite his average or below average work in the ring that isn't at the level of most WWE main eventers, he's on the course to get a push at the high level in spite of that, because he has a special X factor and connection with the crowd that hasn't gone unnoticed by anyone. If his push isn't sustained, even the crowd still like him. It'll likely be because he mishandled himself backstage in a way that caused him to lose the support of key people who can influence his push. That last line sounds very fucking shady, in my opinion. Look, we really do not know what LA Knight really is, backstage. Apparently, there was a lot of stories about him, when he was in Impact. Apparently, he was in the WWE back in, 2013, 2014, and he got fired because apparently he had some argument with the coach. He was in TNA as Eli Drake, and then he later went to the NWA. We do not know his backstage antics, and honestly, I could care less about those backstage antics. I didn't like that last line stated. If his push isn't sustained, even the crowd still like him. It'll likely be because he mishandled himself backstage in a way that caused him to lose the support of key people. That last line, in my opinion, is really fucking shady. Because, again, at the end of the day, we just do not know how he is backstage. And he knows, LA Knight in interviews has spoken highly about himself, and he can tell he knows his worth. And when it comes to LA Knight, look, LA Knight is over with the audience. If WWE does not see that, then clearly there's something wrong in the creative side of things. But when it comes to LA Knight, I mean, he has the crowd by the palm of his hands. I don't view LA Knight as like a one-hit wonder. I think LA Knight will be a big star in the future. And think about this. I believe he's 41 years old. So he doesn't really have a lot of time left. The reason why people are wanting for an LA Knight push right now is because he's in his 40s. He's in his very early 40s, and he doesn't have a lot of time left in his career, and this is basically his first break. If you really think about it, I thought it was very disappointing that he lost the Fatal 4-Way, on SmackDown, and it's going to be Santos Escobar versus Rey Mysterio this coming Friday, which if you think about it in a way, kind of makes sense. But again, if there is a guy to take the belt off of Austin Theory, it's clearly LA Knight. Because Austin Theory is doing absolutely nothing with the United States Championship, and LA Knight is the perfect fit for the United States Championship. People honestly, create the assumption of, oh, you guys want stuff immediately at the moment, and it doesn't work that way, which I can understand that argument. But at the same time, it's not like we're asking him to fucking dethrone Roman Reigns, because clearly LA Knight is not the guy to dethrone Roman Reigns. Just give him a mid-card push and then build him up, for like the next couple of months and then move him towards that main event level. Maybe he could go after the World Heavyweight Championship, which I doubt it because he's on opposite brands of Seth Rollins. But still, LA Knight right now is one of the hottest acts on WWE TV. The views on social media show it. The merchandise sales clearly show it. Like, LA Knight is definitely... I genuinely believe he's going to be one of the big stars in WWE by the end of this year. LA Knight is going to be super over with the audience, and everybody's just going to be chanting LA Knight. Do I think this is a yes movement all over again? I have absolutely no idea. Because the thing is, with Daniel Bryan is, I genuinely believe, I have the belief that Daniel Bryan was super over with the audience, but Daniel Bryan was not wanted to be at the top by WWE management. That was a very, very, very real thing. When he won the titles at WrestleMania 30, Bryan Danielson before that, was kind of looked down upon because, again, the original planned main event for that particular WrestleMania was Randy Orton versus Batista, the lamest WrestleMania main event you could possibly have, and the fact that they finally gave it to Daniel Bryan was great. But again, I think this is a different scenario. I think they will push LA Knight at the end of the day. It'd be very foolish for them not to push LA Knight. These backstage, attitudes or whatever that, PW Torch is reporting. Look, we do not know. Maybe LA Knight has learned from his previous mistakes. He knows he's in a capacity like the WWE that, doesn't tolerate shit like that. If you're in the WWE, you have to play by their rules. It's not like any other of these promotions like AEW or Impact Wrestling where you can basically just do whatever the fuck you want. I mean, granted, there's still management over there that, keeps their talent in line. But again, WWE is a different level. And when it comes to LA Knight, I think he knows that. So the fact that PW Torch is reporting about his fucking backstage antics, in my opinion, I think is ridiculous. I don't think we should really worry about that because LA Knight, at the end of the day, is a professional. And I think at the end of the day, he will get his push. A lot of people do call him buried after he lost that match at, SmackDown this past Friday, which you could say that, but, I mean, if he's still over with the audience, that doesn't make him buried. Just because you lose a match doesn't mean you're buried. That term is used a lot. But I do think LA Knight deserves his push. I think the best way that they should have done it was to have him win the Fatal 4-Way and have him go on to SummerSlam and face Austin Theory for the United States Championship. What are these plans for LA Knight after SummerSlam? We have no idea. Is he going to go after Roman Reigns? No, he's not. I assume he's going to go after the U.S. title maybe, but if there was the time to pull the trigger, now is definitely the time. But I do believe LA Knights by the end of this year will become one of the hottest acts on WWE television. So those are my thoughts on basically LA Knight and all of these stories that are coming out about him. Honestly, I don't think we need to worry a lot about LA Knight because I feel like management will definitely do right for LA Knight. All right, in our next story, we're going to be talking about briefly about Death Before Dishonor. Yes, Ring of Honor had a pay-per-view this past Friday, which I did not cover because, again, there was a lack of build for the show. Number one, I barely watch ROH on Honor Club because, again, it's basically booked like AEW Dark. You have like 8 matches on one show. You'd have 18 matches on the other show. It's literally a damn near 3-hour show. Like, bro, everybody thought this was going to be AEW's version of Black and Gold NXT. If you really think about it, Black and Gold NXT was kind of in a response to Ring of Honor, so it's kind of like Ring of Honor is trying to be original, whatever. But still, Death Before Dishonor happened. The card looked great. It's just there was a lack of interest. All of the stuff was going on Honor Club, and not very people are subscribed to Honor Club. Surprisingly, they actually aired the pay-per-view on Honor Club, so I didn't have to show $40 for the show. And also, it took place in my home state of New Jersey. It took place in Trenton, which I was, when they first announced the show, I was planning on going on the show, but I knew ticket sales were not going to be very good for this show because it's fucking Ring of Honor. But I ended up not going to the show because, again, it's a Ring of Honor show. There was a lack of interest in the show, but that is not to say the show was bad. I didn't watch the whole show. I didn't watch the tag team matches. Of course, Aussie Open, I believe, are the new ROH tag team champions. I saw the first match between Commander and Gravity. Very good opening luchador match. If there's one thing that AEW is very good at, it's showcasing a lot of the Lucha Libre stars internationally, which is phenomenal. They showcase guys like Bandito, of course, Commander, Jolistico, Gravity. Phenomenal stuff. And Gravity, it was actually my first time seeing Gravity, so that was great to see. I saw the Pure title match between Katsuyori Shibata and Daniel Garcia for the Pure title. It was a great match. I loved it. Katsuyori Shibata retained the Pure title. Of course, we had the two main events. We had Claudio Castagnoli defending his Ring of Honor World title against Pac. Of course, this match was actually announced immediately after Blood and Guts because, of course, there was kind of a story being built around Pac joining the Blackpool Combat Club for Blood and Guts, and what happened is he ended up retreating the match, and that led towards the Blackpool Combat Club losing the match. It was a great match, man. Pac, I'm so fucking happy Pac is back because, in my opinion, his presence is greatly missed on AEW television, and I do believe Pac is just a phenomenal athlete, and he's just that psychotic type of wrestler that I like in any type of wrestler, if that makes any sense. And the match he had with Claudio was off the charts. Some of the spots were absolutely insane. You know, we had Claudio throw Pac out of the ring through the table. That was fucking insane. You had Claudio do the swing on Pac, you know, on the stage. Just crazy stuff. But overall, it was a phenomenal match. And we had the actual main event. We had, of course, Athena defend her Ring of Honor Women's Championship against Willow Nightingale. Of course, Willow Nightingale is the winner of the Owen Hart Cup tournament for the women this year. Overall, that was a phenomenal match. If there was any match that could have easily main evented this show, it was clearly Athena and Willow Nightingale. Some people are even saying that this was the best women's match of the entire year, which honestly, if you think that, I can't really blame you. I mean, Charlotte and Rhea is definitely up there from WrestleMania, but overall, man, Athena and Willow Nightingale absolutely killed it. They absolutely killed it. I'm becoming a very, very, very big fan of Willow Nightingale. She's just great. You know, she's kind of in a way AEW's version of the hugger version of Bayley, if that makes any sense. But she really creates her own dynamic and she creates her own style to that happiness. Willow Nightingale can fucking go. She can. Athena is doing great work. You know, it sucks that she's only delegated to Ring of Honor because I really want to see her more on AEW TV. But what she's doing in Ring of Honor is great. You know, again, Athena is just on a different level. Her in-ring ability is phenomenal, and just her character is just really good. I love her heel work. And this was their third match. I believe they had a match a couple of months ago when Ring of Honor first relaunched on Honor Club. They had, of course, their second match in the semifinals of the Owen Hart Cup tournament on Rampage, which I didn't really care about, and we did see Willow Nightingale pin Athena. And, of course, this third match, which is easily their best match. You know, this match definitely deserved to be, you know, the main event of the show, and Athena retains the Ring of Honor Women's Champion, but do not take anything away from Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale will definitely not only be a future world champion, but she will also carry a division in the future. So those are my thoughts on Death Before Dishonor. I thought Death Before Dishonor was a pretty good show. Again, there was a lack of interest in the show, and that was my biggest issue with the show. That is why that's basically why I did not cover the show. I don't cover Ring of Honor weekly because, again, it's basically booked like AEW Dark. There's like literally 18 matches on like a 2-hour show. You know, first off, Ring of Honor shouldn't, if you want to tell a good wrestling show, like for a show like Ring of Honor, the show should be 1 hour. You know, book it like NXT did when it was on the WWE Network at 1 hour. You know, I get you want to showcase the talent. I get it, and I totally understand it. But you could easily showcase your main characters and your main stories and your main talent on a 1 hour show easily. And that's just my opinion. And honestly, Ring of Honor, to me, there's just a lack of direction regarding Ring of Honor. If you really look at it, all the champions, except for one, are all AEW talents. You know, Claudio is an AEW guy. The Lucha Brothers, Aussie Open are AEW guys. I mean, they're signed to AEW, and they're the ROH Tag Team Champions. Not to say that that's a bad thing, because I do believe Aussie Open fits perfectly in the Ring of Honor Tag Team division. Athena was signed to AEW. Like, they're all Ring of Honor champions, and there's a lack of exclusivity with Ring of Honor. Same thing as WWE regarding Raw and SmackDown. It's basically the same thing. Really, the closest that we have towards an actual roster split is Dynamite and Collision, and it's not even an official roster split. It's just there's different stories that happen on Dynamite and Collision, and there's some stories that overlap on Dynamite and Collision. But overall, I thought Death Before Dishonor was a great show. I enjoyed it. Was it as an important show? No, but I still got a kick of the show. So those are my thoughts on Ring of Honor's Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view. All right. After that, we got WrestleMania 40. Yes, WrestleMania 40 tickets. WrestleMania 40, of course, is going to be taking place at Lincoln Financial Field, and they're going to be available Friday, August 18th at 10 a.m. Eastern, which, if you guys think about it, WrestleMania is going to be taking place in Philadelphia. I'm planning on going there. I've been to 2 WrestleManias. I've been to WrestleMania 35 at MetLife Stadium, and I went to WrestleMania 37 night 1. I didn't go to night 2. I went to night 1, and overall night 1 was clearly the better show. But these past few years, man, WrestleMania has been fucking killing it, especially this year, man. WrestleMania this year was absolutely phenomenal. One thing that I've always wanted to experience was a full-on WrestleMania weekend. Not only just going to WrestleMania, but going to the SmackDown, before WrestleMania, the Hall of Fame, going to the Raw after WrestleMania, and going to the other shows during that weekend, maybe a GCW show, maybe, a Ring of Honor show if it's not head-to-head with SmackDown. Like, I've always wanted to experience WrestleMania weekend, and hopefully when these tickets come out, I end up, doing that, but we're going to have to wait and see. I can tell you right now, those fucking tickets are going to be goddamn expensive. I mean, WWE is selling out everywhere, and when they sell out everywhere, those tickets are going to fly fast, but not only that, the prices are going to be up, so it's going to be absolutely crazy to see what happens. But nonetheless, I'm definitely excited. WrestleMania is clearly the biggest show of the year, and it's going to be very interesting to see what goes down. Of course, the main event, most likely it's going to be Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes next year, but WrestleMania tickets will be available August 18th. So if you guys want to go to WrestleMania in Philadelphia, tickets will be on sale on that date. Moving back to Death Before Dishonor, actually, there was changes with Death Before Dishonor. I forgot to mention this. This is according to Fightful Select. Ring of Honor's Death Before Dishonor card is coming together for Friday, but it's all some big changes. Fightful Select has learned that the original plans for Death Before Dishonor were actually rematches from Supercard of Honor. Samoa Joe versus Mark Briscoe, Claudio Castagnoli versus Eddie Kingston. Claudio versus Eddie was originally reported by Dave Meltzer. Fightful Select has confirmed that Samoa Joe was planning for time off from AEW and ROH and wasn't originally planned for the Ring of Honor DVD pay-per-view. However, the week before the show, AEW got word that Joe would be available for the show and the immediate future, and it's tied to strikes in Hollywood. Joe is scheduled to miss quite as he was set to do media and appearances tied to his new role in Peacock's new Twisted Metal series. However, due to ongoing strikes, Joe will no longer be making those appearances, and he was subsequently available for the pay-per-view. Plans were changed last week and to include Joe on the show. However, prior to that, Ring of Honor was planning to move without Joe, and Shane Taylor versus Dalton Castle would have happened at the Death Before Dishonor show, but due to the strike, Joe is no longer involved in San Diego Comic-Con. As a result, the Top Contender tournament finals were moved up, and Joe was added to the show. Eddie Kingston was also a part of the G1. Mark Briscoe, of course, unfortunately suffered an injury, and that's why we have Claudio versus Pac for the show. So those were the small changes for Death Before Dishonor. I just wanted to basically keep that note up because, again, I completely forgot about that whole thing. But, yeah, those are the reasons why, and those were the changes for Death Before Dishonor. All right. Speaking of WrestleMania 41. Where is WrestleMania 41 going to be taking place? Is it going to be taking place in the UK? We do not know. But from what it looks like, that is not going to be the case. We have details on discussed WrestleMania 2025's location, and we also have rumors on Royal Rumble's next year location, or the Royal Rumble 2024 location, I should say. According to Fightful Select, WrestleMania could be headed to a first-time location. Fightful Select has learned that Minneapolis, Minnesota, has been heavily discussed within the company as a possible and even likely location for WrestleMania 41 in 2025. Minneapolis city planners had actually leaked the news to local media, but when Fightful asked WWE officials months ago, they confirmed that Minneapolis was one of several cities that had interest. There were also representatives on behalf of the city who were at SoFi Stadium for WrestleMania 39. We're told that U.S. Bank Stadium would be the location as temperature and baseball season could prevent the possibility of Target Field. U.S. Bank Stadium has a dome and seats well over 73,000 for the Minnesota Vikings football games. WWE told us that they view U.S. Bank Stadium as a world-class venue, and they have heard that they're getting more aggressive in getting non-Vikings related events in a huge stadium. There was a situation a few years ago where some were involved in the city cost themselves a shot at WrestleMania by leaking the show that was going there. PW Insider also reported this week that Tampa was being considered for the Royal Rumble, but talent we've spoken to have said that as of last week, when they asked that where it would be at, they would be told that the information could be provided as of yet, or couldn't be provided as of yet. And those we've spoken to say that Tampa has been the front runner for quite some time. So from what it looks like, WrestleMania is going to be in Minneapolis in 2025. And when it comes to next year's Royal Rumble, from what it looks like, it's going to take place in Tampa, which personally, I mean, like, when it comes to these big shows, we all know WWE likes doing it big. You know, the Royal Rumble is no longer an arena event. If they wanted to go to an arena, they could. But since WWE is so hot right now, like, Royal Rumble, and they've done this for the past couple of years, Royal Rumble is a show that takes place at either, you know, a dome or a baseball stadium. That is basically what the Royal Rumble, you know, takes place in now. And when it comes to Tampa, I mean, Tampa is not a bad city to host the Royal Rumble. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Royal Rumble would go to Tampa. When it comes to WrestleMania, of course, there was a lot of news regarding WrestleMania in the UK. Clearly, WWE is looking at the ticket sales for AEW's All In at Wembley Stadium. Of course, they would love to have a WrestleMania in the UK, but the only way that they're going to have a WrestleMania in the UK if the UK is basically the highest bidder for WrestleMania. Because again, WrestleMania is now a bid show. WWE does not choose to go to particular cities for a WrestleMania. The cities themselves pay the amount of money to WWE to host WrestleMania. And whoever the highest bidder is clearly gets WrestleMania. And from what it looks like right now, Minneapolis is definitely the front runner for WrestleMania, which is definitely great. But honestly, you know, it's great that they're going to new locations because, of course, throughout the past couple of years, WrestleMania, you know, have been going back and forth in almost the same cities. Like, you know, 30, they were in New Orleans. 34, they were in New Orleans. 29, they were in MetLife. 35, they were in MetLife. You know, they would go to the same cities over and over and over again. 32 was in Dallas. 38 was in Dallas as well. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, Minneapolis is a new city for WrestleMania. I don't believe WrestleMania has been in Minneapolis before, but it looks like WrestleMania 41 is going to be taking place in Minneapolis, but I'm definitely focused on Philadelphia because I'm really excited for WrestleMania in Philadelphia next year. So it's going to be very interesting to see what goes down, and I'm definitely excited to see what's going to be happening. Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is in the news. He has a brand new documentary premiering this month on Peacock. Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare documentary, is set to premiere this month. The documentary is coming to Peacock on July 31st. I'm reading this from F4W Online, the people of the Wrestling Observer. A new documentary chronicling Cody Rhodes' WWE return is coming to Peacock later this month. Peacock announced that WWE American Nightmare Becoming Cody Rhodes will begin streaming on Monday, July 31st. The documentary is 2 hours long, and it's narrated by Heels and Arrow star Stephen Amell, which is great to see, man. If you guys haven't checked out Heels, it is a very good show. Season 2 comes out in a few days. I'm 100% excited. If you guys are non-wrestling fans or are wrestling fans, you guys should check out Heels, and you will understand why the wrestling business is very important to us and fans like me. But so the documentary will be premiering, and the trailer and synopsis, of course, has been released. And, of course, the trailer includes interviews with Cody Rhodes, The Undertaker, his sister Teal, Paul Triple H Levesque, Ric Flair, Brandy Rhodes, and Kevin Owens. After departing AEW, Rhodes made his return to WWE at WrestleMania 38 in 2022, and his comeback was briefly derailed by a torn pec that he suffered in June. But Rhodes returned to the ring in time to win his men's Royal Rumble match this January. Rhodes went on to unsuccessfully challenge Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE title at WrestleMania. Rhodes is currently feuding with Brock Lesnar, with Rhodes and Lesnar having a one-on-one record against each other, or a 1-1 record against each other. It is expected that they'll settle their rivalry at Summerslam, which is already official. So the Cody Rhodes documentary will be releasing on July 31st, and we have actually news from the Cody Rhodes side of things regarding Fightful. I believe Sean Ross Sapp interviewed Cody Rhodes, and he definitely talked about a lot of things regarding, you know, Cody Rhodes and his relationship with the EVPs, and he actually talked about smashing Triple H's throne. If you guys do not remember, on the very first AEW show, Triple H, or I shouldn't say Triple H, Cody Rhodes actually smashed the throne of Triple H. Cody Rhodes actually talked about this. At an AEW pay-per-view in 2019, Cody Rhodes symbolically smashed Triple H's throne, leading to many to believe that the two sides had or would have long-lasting heat. However, since Cody returned to WWE in 2022, we've not heard anything about that. When Fightful's Sean Ross Sapp asked about Cody Rhodes about what Triple H's reaction was, he said that he's sure that Triple H has seen it, but it hadn't been, broached or caused any friction between the two. He said that what makes him so sure that Triple H has seen it, it is that he'll reference short lines from fairly obscure online interviews that many would think would fly under the radar. Cody said that the thing that he was more concerned about Triple H seeing was being the elite bit about Cody's exorcism. Of course, he would recite WWE facts about being brainwashed by WWE. In the bit, Triple H references this as the bad, or was referenced as the bad guy. Frankie Kazarian played a character implied to be Triple H, and Cody said he did a great job. The Cody Rhodes documentary premieres on Peacock on July 31st. Of course, he also, in this interview with Sean Ross Sapp, talked about the EVPs. He talked about, Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and his current status with those guys, which, clearly seems to be positive. I don't think there's any heat between those guys, and I do believe that, the Elite actually let Cody Rhodes borrow footage and use footage to be involved in this documentary, American Nightmare Becoming Cody Rhodes. But what are my overall thoughts regarding this whole documentary? I think this documentary is probably going to be one of the best documentaries that WWE has ever produced. I mean, when it comes to documentaries, especially, recent documentaries, like throughout the past couple years, of course, they do their 24 documentaries, their Icons series, which I absolutely love on Peacock. They did a documentary, I believe, on Yokozuna. They did a documentary on many different feuds with the Icon series as well. I believe they had a Vladimir documentary. If you guys do not know who Vladimir is actually a super fan, and they had a documentary, and they actually released a trailer for that Vladimir documentary, but unfortunately, they didn't release the documentary, which absolutely sucks because I was anticipating that documentary, and we never got it. Hopefully, Peacock, if you guys are watching this, I doubt it, please release the goddamn documentary. But when it comes to the American Nightmare documentary, I'm definitely excited to see what's going to be happening. There's going to be a lot of talk and discussion after this documentary drops. And from what it looks like, he's definitely going to be mentioning the Elite. He's definitely going to be mentioning his time in AEW because think about this. Cody Rhodes' story involves AEW. If you completely ignore that, then what was the whole fucking point of this whole documentary? And I do believe Cody Rhodes is going to be speaking highly on the Elite, and it's going to make people a lot salty because we all know there's a lot of fucking detractors and a lot of fucking haters about the Elite. And I always had the belief, and this is very true in my opinion, the reason why a lot of people hate the Elite is not for the style that they wrestle, but a lot of people hate the Elite because of the way that they made it to the dance. The Elite did not need the WWE machine to back them up. They made it on their own. The Young Bucks made it on their own. And that is what pissed a lot of people off in the fan base. And Cody Rhodes has a large portion to do with that. And I think, of course, they're going to use a lot of BTE footage, which is great. Cody Rhodes is, his story is very good, man. The story of Cody Rhodes is very fascinating because he came into the WWE, I believe, in 2007. That's when he made his main roster debut because he was in developmental for a couple years. And of course he was paired with Legacy, but he wasn't really doing much. He had many different character changes, like for example, Dash and Cody Rhodes. And then of course he had the Stardust thing, which didn't work out for him. And then he left and basically he started from ground up all the way in the independents. And of course he joined up with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, a part of Bullet Club and the Elite. Of course, they were doing a lot of popular things with being the Elite. All In then happened. And then AEW. The All In / AEW stuff is going to be a big talking point in this documentary because, again, it plays a huge role in Cody's story. But the way Cody left AEW and came back to the WWE, that's also going to be a big talking point as well. Because, again, the reason why Cody returned to the WWE in the first place is because he wanted to be a top-level guy. He wanted to be a main event guy, and look where it got him now. Cody went back to the WWE, and he's a much bigger star for it, and that is great to see. So I'm definitely excited to see what Cody's going to be saying in this documentary. I'm very excited to see what they're going to be covering in this documentary. This documentary, in my opinion, is going to be very newsworthy, and it's going to cause a lot of discussion all over the internet, a lot of detractors, a lot of, disagreements, a lot of agreements. This is going to be one of those documentaries, man. I'm very excited to see what happens, and you bet your ass I'm going to be covering this documentary right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast. So those are my thoughts on Cody Rhodes' American Nightmare Becoming Cody Rhodes documentary, of course, releasing July 31st on Peacock. I'm 100% excited for this. Of course, AEW Collision. So we're going to be moving on towards AEW. There was a Collision meeting led by CM Punk last year. There was a talent meeting ahead of the July 8th episode of AEW Collision that we've learned more about. Fightful Select learned that there was a talent meeting at that episode of Collision. We shortly found out later that it didn't make its way to talent who weren't there or are typically featured on Dynamite more than Collision. There was a good reason for that, it seems, as a large part of the meeting was about how Collision has differentiated itself from Dynamite to the point where many of Dynamite's usual detractors have taken a liking to Collision. And CM Punk led the meeting, and there were several topics brought up about how Collision could separate itself from what fans see on Dynamite, including finishes on some matches. They went over what it was and wasn't good for Collision, such as finishes, shenanigans, and, the like. There were also subjects covered, such as promoting AEW-related projects and shows more, especially the Fight Forever video game. Some of the safety guidelines were also covered during the meeting. So again, very positive meeting, led by CM Punk on the July 8th Collision. I'll tell you from firsthand, not only experience from being at a Collision event or, from firsthand experience actually watching Collision. Collision is clearly the better show than Dynamite. Not to say AEW Dynamite is a bad show, because Dynamite was really what got a lot of people hooked into AEW to begin with. And that is not a bad thing, because at the end of the day, if Collision is better than Dynamite, that's just nothing but a win for AEW. It's not gonna, it's not like a WWE scenario where SmackDown, is regarded as the better show, back in like 2002, and Vince was like, no, Raw needs to be the better show. It's very different now. Collision, of course, is drastically different. The reason why Collision is the better show is because there's more focus and there's more story-driven elements in Collision than Dynamite. Not to say that Dynamite does not have any story. If you think Dynamite has no story whatsoever, clearly you're not watching the show. There's clearly some storylines happening on Dynamite, but there's very less things that happen on Collision that create more of an impact on that particular show than AEW Dynamite. Because if you watch AEW Dynamite, they cram so much stuff in 2 hours. They would have a big moment that would happen on the show, like an amazing segment between two wrestlers, right? And then immediately they'd go to a backstage segment regarding something else that means absolutely nothing, or they'd move immediately towards a video package that means absolutely nothing for like 30 seconds. You know what I'm saying? Collision doesn't have that. There's more focus on talent that fans want to see utilized. For example, Ricky Starks. A lot of people on social media have been saying that Ricky Starks has, quote-unquote, been reinvigorated, which honestly, after that promo that Ricky Starks cut after winning the Owen Hart Cup tournament, honestly, I can't disagree enough. Collision has done way more for CM Punk not for CM Punk, but Collision has done way more for Ricky Starks than, whatever Ricky Starks was doing in his babyface run. I think heel Ricky Starks works so much better. Switchblade Jay White, Bullet Club Gold is literally a main thing on Collision, and they're doing so well. I made the prediction that Bullet Club Gold is going to be the top faction in AEW within a year. Jay White is doing very well for himself over at Collision, and that is great to see. We got Andrade El Idolo. The House of Black is doing big things. We're going to be having a ladder match for the Mask of Andrade between Buddy Matthews and Andrade this Saturday on Collision. There's a lot of stories that are being told on Collision that have focus, and they're the main things on that show. They have their own exclusive stories that, are exclusive to Collision, but there's also other things that happen on Dynamite that overlap on Dynamite and Collision, and that is what you want. And Collision is doing everything that Rampage should have done. Rampage, when it first launched, everybody was excited about it because Rampage, of course, was basically, if you think about it, their SmackDown to their Raw. Now we have Collision Collision is everything that Rampage should have been from a production standpoint. They have a different presentation, different commentary team, but also a different sense of focus on the show. There's more of a storyline-driven show. Like, Collision is more of the story element show for AEW. Dynamite is the wrestling show. It's kind of similar to what Raw and SmackDown was back in 2002 and 2003. Raw was more of the talking show. SmackDown was more of the wrestling show. In AEW's case, it's kind of the opposite, but it's a good thing because we need variety in AEW. That's what makes AEW so great. AEW is so good because of its variety and all the different styles that it gives you in wrestling, but also the stories that they tell. So if you don't like what you see on Dynamite, clearly you can go watch Collision and be invested in what you're watching. And clearly when it comes to this interview that was led by CM Punk, it even stated in this Fightful Select report that a lot of Dynamite's detractors like Collision. Case in point, Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff. How many fucking times has Eric Bischoff criticized AEW Dynamite and just doesn't like the style of the show? Meanwhile, we got AEW Collision. Eric Bischoff is like, bro, the show is so fucking good. Say what you want about the ratings. The ratings, look, they're not, they're not Dynamite's ratings. Clearly, number one, it's on a Saturday night, and number two, college football is going to start, and they're going to get fucking slaughtered in the ratings. But when it comes to a wrestling show, to me, I'm not going to judge a show by the number it does in the ratings. I'm going to judge the show by the quality of the show. Not to say Dynamite is not a quality show, because I do believe Dynamite is definitely a quality show. But when it comes to Collision, in my opinion, Collision is on another level. And you got guys like Eric Bischoff who constantly criticize AEW for what they do. Meanwhile, he watches Collision and is like, bro, Collision is like literally the best thing ever. He likes Collision. Dynamite's detractors are now becoming fucking colliders, which is fucking insane to think. Collision is much better than Dynamite, and clearly, Collision is 100% a success. And not only that, you can tell Warner Brothers Discovery is happy with the numbers that Collision is doing, because I believe in an interview, or not an interview, from Fightful, I believe they even reported they definitely expected, the numbers to be what they are on a Saturday night, because they know Saturday night is a challenging night. But Collision is definitely a success in my opinion, and it's overall a great show, and it's clearly better than AEW Dynamite. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on the quote-unquote talent meeting that took place with CM Punk and AEW Collision. All right, in our next story, of course, we are going to be talking about Chicago. Thanksgiving week, or, when it comes to AEW, they always go to Chicago Thanksgiving. The tradition isn't stopping anytime soon, according to Fightful Select. Fightful Select has learned that as of today, All Elite Wrestling was continuing their tradition of running Chicago during Thanksgiving week. The company has went there in both 2021 and 2022 and will be there for this year's show. But this year's actually very interesting because I believe Thanksgiving weekend, WWE is also going to be in Chicago for not only SmackDown, but Survivor Series. This week, that week will be particularly an interesting one as AEW Dynamite is slated for Chicago on November 22nd. Just a few days later, WWE will be running Survivor Series at the Allstate Arena on Saturday, with SmackDown happening the day prior. So all you folks in Chicago, you guys are cooking, man. You guys are getting everything you fucking want. You guys are getting All Out. You guys are getting Collision. You guys are getting Dynamite at the Now Arena. Like, bro, you guys are getting all those events. And then later on, Thanksgiving, you got not only AEW, but you also got WWE. You got Dynamite, of course, happening in, the Wintrust Arena, I believe, in Chicago. But also, you guys are going to be having, Survivor Series and SmackDown at the Allstate Arena. You guys are fucking getting everything y'all fucking want. Be fucking lucky, bro. Man, I wish us in Jersey had the same shit, but we don't. But yeah, so it looks like AEW will be returning Thanksgiving week. There was a little bit of a concern about that, but it is what it is. A talent from AEW's deal is officially up. Vicky Guerrero is no longer All Elite. After 2 years with All Elite Wrestling, Vicky Guerrero is no longer a part of the company. Guerrero has not been on the road with AEW since February, and when they asked her to remain home. Fightful Select reported that earlier this year, Guerrero was set to leave the company, and Guerrero confirmed that her contract would not be renewed and was set to expire in July. That period has lapsed, and Guerrero is now a free agent. Guerrero has long planned to move to other ventures. In recent months, Fuego del Sol, Brian Pillman Jr., and Leva Bates deals have all expired as well. Which, the Leva Bates scenario, like, look, we all know Leva Bates was not going to be a big star. It's fucking Leva Bates of all people. But it really did suck when it came to her story because they kind of left her on red like that. Like that, if there's one thing I do not like about AEW is like the way that they release their talents not release their talents, but like when they don't renew their contracts, they don't really give them notice, which I don't really like, bro. That's way too fucked up in my opinion. Saying like, oh yeah, we liked you in the beginning, but you're now rendered useless, so go fuck yourself. Like I don't like that. Hopefully they make those types of situations much better, but it is what it is. Speaking of a particular talent and a particular re-signing in AEW has re-signed Roosh to a new contract. Yes, Roosh is now finally with AEW once again, and he actually posted a video on social media, and in this tweet by Roosh, he stated, "I started a new chapter in my personal and professional career. People doubted I could make it, and today I want to say I'm 100% AEW. Thank you at Tony Khan, thank you fans, and thank my LFI brothers. We can now rule the wrestling world. Hashtag AEW, hashtag LFI." And the video shows, of course, Roosh signing his new deal and Tony Khan signing as well. So great. If there was one guy, if Roosh, because I believe his brother Dragon Lee is right now in NXT. But I will say this, if they had let Roosh go, AEW would look very foolish. Because, again, Roosh is so fucking talented at what he does. Like, I think it's ridiculous, in my opinion, to just let this guy go. Roosh is so damn talented. If you guys haven't checked out Roosh, clearly y'all should have. Watch the match that he had with Bryan Danielson on that Dynamite a couple of months prior. Absolutely freaking amazing, in my opinion. But from what it looks like right now, Roosh, I believe he had a 1-year deal on his contract. So now he re-signed with AEW, and of course he got a significant pay raise. And you know what? Good on Roosh. I think Roosh will do good things in AEW, and I believe CM Punk posted on his Instagram story, he posted, I believe it was a photo of Roosh, and he wrote Collider. So what if they showcase Roosh on Collision? I think on Dynamite he'd be showcased very well, but I feel like he'd be showcased very very much better on Collision in my opinion. So hopefully Roosh does good things in AEW, and congratulations to Roosh. He signed a new deal with All Elite Wrestling, as he should, and as Tony Khan should have signed him, because if they had lost to Roosh, I would have been pissed. We're going to be talking about NXT. NXT is in the news. NXT, it's very hilarious. Tuesday's show scored 746,000 viewers. I'm reading this from F4W Online, the people at the Wrestling Observer. The episode of NXT last week averaged 746,000 viewers on the USA Network, up 11.2% from the previous week. It's the second highest audience of the year for the show, trailing only the June 20th show where Seth Rollins defended the World Heavyweight Championship against Braun Breaker. The show averaged a .21 rating in the 18 to 49 demo, up 5% from the previous week, and it was the second highest rating in that category dating back to April of 2021. As compared to the same week in 2022, the overall audience was up 26.9%, while the 18 to 49 rating was up 61.5%. It's the 14th week out of the 15 that NXT has had a year-over-year increase in the key demo. Listed below are the 11 weeks overall viewership in the 18 to 49 demo ratings for NXT, as well as the 10 average week in both categories. This week's show is up 21.9% in overall viewers and 23.5% in the 18 to 49 as compared to recent averages. So basically they scored a high rating because of this particular photo that you see right here. Mr. Dominic Mysterio, Dirty Dom, won the NXT North American title from Wes Lee, which I did not watch, which... Honestly, I don't watch NXT. The reason I genuinely have this belief, look, I'm not against Dominic winning the North American title, but he's a Raw talent and he's an NXT. He's not an NXT, but the reason why NXT is doing the ratings that they are doing, let's be honest with ourselves, is because they are bringing in main roster guys down to NXT. That's the only reason why. Is that going to make me watch NXT? No. I treat NXT like I treat Ring of Honor and like I treat Rampage. I just don't care about what's going on in NXT. Not to say anything bad about the talent, because the talent down in NXT is phenomenal. And they develop their talent very, very, very well. Like guys like Carmelo Hayes, guys like Braun Breaker, guys like Wes Lee, are phenomenal wrestlers, and they will be successful in, the main roster 100%, because now we got Triple H in charge. And now we don't have that stigma of guys down in NXT, getting super popular, and then all of a sudden when they get called up to the main roster, they just get underutilized. This is very different. But when it comes to Dominic, winning the North American title, I'm fine with it. But again, he's a Raw talent. The fact that he won an NXT championship goes to show you that they're clearly wanting to boost the ratings for NXT just by having main roster guys on there. When they went head-to-head against AEW, the only times that they beat any AEW in the ratings in this so-called quote-unquote Wednesday Night Wars was when main roster guys showed up on the show. And it didn't work out so well for NXT to the point where 2 years later, NXT eventually moved back to Tuesdays. Or not back to Tuesdays, they moved to Tuesdays because they've been on Wednesdays for years. But AEW kind of stole that from them. And clearly, if you watch the NXT show and the AEW show, clearly you'll showcase or watch AEW over the NXT show. But in this recent story, WWE is pushing for NXT consistent competition with AEW Dynamite. I'm reading this from SE Scoop's websites. According to reports in the Wrestling Observer newsletter by Dave Meltzer, WWE's reaction to NXT's recent surge in viewership is positive. Not only are the rising numbers coming at an opportune time for the show's TV contract renewal negotiations, but they have also reignited the drive within the company to surpass AEW Dynamite in the ratings frequently. In a quote, he states, and I quote, "The 2 points most talked about by different people was that this is a contract year, so these gains are coming at a great time for the renewal price. Those in NXT who are definitely pushing the idea of doing numbers that beat Dynamite. This resurgence for NXT could be attributed to WWE's strategic shift in positioning the show as just more than just a developmental brand, with WWE President Nick Khan's vision to integrate main roster talent into NXT and promote it as a third brand has paid dividends." And that right there, to me, with Nick Khan wanting NXT to be a third brand, to me it sounds very fucking hypocritical on my end, because if you think about it, when Triple H was running NXT from, the early 2010s, into at least 2021 with NXT Black and Gold, clearly Triple H was like, no, this is not a developmental brand anymore. It's basically a third brand besides Raw and SmackDown. For fuck's sakes, NXT got so popular to the point where it moved to the USA Network. NXT, that incarnation of NXT. Sellout crowds all over the place when it comes to their NXT TakeOver shows. Weekends of WWE pay-per-views where NXT had their takeovers in the same arena before major WWE events. People always regarded those takeover shows 10 times better than a show like a SummerSlam or a WrestleMania or a Royal Rumble. Triple H even went on record in a video at the Performance Center and even stated, this is not a developmental brand, this is a third brand. And basically, the whole purpose of NXT changing into NXT 2.0 is to basically make this brand a strictly developmental brand. And to their extent, it has worked for them because they're developing a lot of stars down in NXT, and that's what you want. But at the same time, now Nick Khan is like, oh yeah, we're going to move from developmental and really want to make it a third brand. Isn't that what Triple H was doing with NXT Black and Gold? So that is kind of a stupid statement in my opinion. And the fact that they would want to beat AEW Dynamite, it's hilarious to me, because if you think about it, they kind of put themselves in this mess. AEW didn't put themselves in this mess. WWE put themselves in this mess with NXT. They knew AEW was going to go on TNT. This is the funny thing, man. People always talk about, AEW chose this quote-unquote war, which was not even a war to begin with AEW. No. WWE started this whole thing. AEW did not start shit. If you think about it, AEW actually trademarked Tuesday Night Dynamite. Remember that? They wanted the show to go on Tuesdays on TNT, but since TNT had the NBA on Tuesdays and Thursdays, it only left for Wednesdays. And if you think about it, NXT was on the WWE Network at 1 hour on Wednesday, and as soon as they announced the TNT show, WWE was like, let's move NXT from the WWE Network to the USA Network. You already knew their motives, and it bit them right in the ass. Clearly bit them right in the ass, but the fans on the internet will not admit that because they're fucking retarded. But that's just my opinion. But it is what it is. Look, they want to beat Dynamite in the ratings. Look, it's their motive. But at the end of the day, AEW just focuses on AEW, and at the end of the day, WWE should just focus on the WWE. It is what it is. Even Tony Khan, some of the statements that Tony Khan even makes, I remember, right, when I believe it was a Rampage and a SmackDown that went head-to-head. It was a couple years ago. And Tony Khan called it the Friday Night War. And I'm like, what Friday Night War? It's fucking nothing. It's not. You're just going head-to-head. It doesn't mean there's a fucking war. Why are you calling it a Friday Night War? That is the dumbest shit you could possibly say. Like, even Tony Khan would say dumb shit like that, like the Friday Night War. Like, bro, really? Really? It is what it is. But NXT, look, I'm not going to watch NXT. I could care less about NXT. I treat NXT like I treat Ring of Honor and like I treat Rampage. I just don't watch those shows. I cover Dynamite, Collision, Raw, and SmackDown, and the major pay-per-views, period. I don't watch NXT. Nothing against the talent. I just do not watch NXT. That's just my opinion on the nature of the beast. Adam Cole and MJF, their t-shirt, of course, I'm better than you, baby, hit an AEW 2023 sales record, and it's AEW's highest seller on shopaew.com. Of course, I'm reading this from F4W Online, the people at the Wrestling Observer. According to Dave Meltzer in this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter, the new shirt has sold more than any other shirt for the current year in AEW. It's also the second highest grossing shirt for the year behind an MJF button-down shirt that has a higher price point. The shirt was introduced on Dynamite several weeks ago by MJF to a reluctant Adam Cole, and the two opponents turned teammates in a blind eliminator tag team tournament that have now become friends as part of the story. The two first wrestled against each other in a mid-June Dynamite title eliminator bout that went a 30-minute draw. After being paired up in the tournament against their wishes, they defeated The Butcher and Matt Menard in the quarterfinals, Big Bill and Brian Cage in the semifinals, and then Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia in the finals of this past Wednesday's Dynamite. With the win, they earned a title shot against the AEW World Tag Team Champions FTR on this Saturday, July 29th episode of AEW Collision. You fucking love to see it. They are the highest selling t-shirt in 2023 for AEW. Adam Cole said it best this past Wednesday on Dynamite. They struck lightning in a bottle. And I talked about this weeks ago. The stupidest idea when it comes to any storyline in professional wrestling can easily work, and it can grab the audience by the balls. And this is a sheer example of that. Adam Cole and MJF is an example of striking lightning on a bottle. This was the stupidest idea I've ever seen AEW do, but it somehow fucking worked. It's very similar. Now, people are calling this AEW's version of the Bloodline storyline. I think that's a little bit way too far-fetched. But when it comes to the comparisons of the Bloodline storyline, you can compare this to Sami Zayn integrating himself in the group. Because it's very similar in the nature of, again, it was an idea that is just very dumb because of the stuff that Sami Zayn did before. I mean, he fucking wrestled Johnny Knoxville, of all people, at last year's WrestleMania. And he inserts himself in the Bloodline, and he ends up becoming a bigger star because of it. The Bloodline storyline with Sami Zayn is probably one of the best WWE stories in the modern era. And when it comes to Adam Cole and MJF, you know the outcome. You know one guy is going to get whacked. And honestly, man, it's just a phenomenal story to tell. I am in the belief that they should really drag this out. Because if the audience is popping for a fucking double clothesline, or the audience is popping for a fucking slam by MJF on Big Bill, clearly you're doing something right with this story. And it works so well. So I believe they should drag this out long term. Are they going to be winning the AEW World Tag Team Championships this Saturday on Collision? I have no idea. I may be wrong. They may win. But again, it all depends on what AEW has planned. It may go one way. It may go the other way. But the fact that they are the highest-selling t-shirt on shopaew.com in 2023 right now clearly shows that, again, the audience is invested in what they are watching and what they are seeing. The dynamic between Adam Cole and MJF works so well. It works so well. And it's going to make Adam Cole into a bigger star than he already is. It's going to make MJF a bastard heel more than he already is. This story is working out phenomenally, in my opinion. Just working very, very, very well. Hats off to both of these guys. They absolutely deserve it. And these guys are going to be very, very, very successful in the future. All right. In our final story, if I could honestly pull it up, we're going to be talking about Bryan Danielson. Yes, Bryan Danielson is in the news. And apparently, of course, Bryan Danielson underwent surgery on his broken arm, and he has a speedy recovery. Hopefully he has a speedy recovery, because we all know that injury was actually worse than we thought. But when it comes to Bryan Danielson, of course, I believe the injury came from a elbow drop by Kazuchika Okada in the match that they had at Forbidden Door. So Bryan Danielson apparently underwent surgery on his broken arm, and he is undergoing recovery right now. So hopefully we wish Bryan Danielson right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast a speedy recovery, and hopefully he can come back stronger than ever. Of course, we're going to be concluding this show with Retro Match of the Week. Now, when it came to episode 22, which was last week's episode of the WrestleHavoc podcast, I completely forgot to add this segment on the show. Of course, Retro Match of the Week is basically a weekly segment right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast in which I give you guys one match that you guys should check out and why I think it is a match that I definitely remember and a match that you guys should absolutely check out if you guys haven't already checked out that particular match. This week, I'm going to be choosing SummerSlam 2016, the Barclays Center. Of course, this was my very first wrestling event that I've ever attended. SummerSlam 2016, and it was a memorable show in my opinion. But I will say, WWE in a way kind of fucked us in the ass with that Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar match. That was fucking atrocious. Of course, where we had Brock Lesnar TKO Randy Orton. Remember that? We all literally thought leaving that arena that Brock Lesnar went off script, but that didn't happen. Hell, it even fooled Chris Jericho to the point where Jericho actually fought Brock Lesnar backstage. But the match that I'm going to be discussing is AJ Styles versus John Cena. They had a trilogy, of course. Their first match happened at Money in the Bank in which AJ Styles beat John Cena clean. But no, he didn't beat John Cena clean. He actually beat John Cena with the help of Gallows and Anderson, which they've brought in a couple months prior. And the draft happened, and AJ Styles was drafted to SmackDown, and Cena as well. And, of course, this was their second match, and they had their third match at the Royal Rumble the following January for the WWE title. But overall, this was by far the best match that they've possibly had. The reason why I say AJ Styles and John Cena at SummerSlam was their best match of the entire trilogy is because of the fact that from the nature of the scenario, in terms of dream matches in the IWC, this was a dream match. 100% a dream match. The build-up towards this particular match, the back-and-forth promo segments that John Cena and AJ Styles had were absolutely phenomenal. And you would have AJ Styles, cut very good promos. You'd have John Cena completely own AJ Styles on the microphone. It was absolutely hilarious. But the promo segments and the video packages leading up towards this particular match was absolutely amazing. But in terms of the IWC in regards of dream matches, this was 100% a dream match. Because if you guys really think about it, AJ Styles and John Cena are very similar to one another. Of course, John Cena is a mainstream star and AJ Styles is not. AJ Styles is an indie darling, and he will always be an indie darling. Not to say that that's a bad thing, because AJ Styles is one of the best to ever do it. But they're very similar in ways of comparisons. For example, when you think of a promotion, you think of this particular wrestler. When you think of the WWE, you think of a guy like John Cena or a guy like Hulk Hogan or a guy like Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? When you think of TNA, you think of AJ Styles. That is where the similarities come to mind when it regards to AJ Styles and John Cena. And when it came towards this match at SummerSlam, I attended this match live. It's probably one of the best matches that I've ever seen live in my life because this match was off the frickin' charts. The back and forth, especially near the end by both men, was absolutely phenomenal. AJ Styles looked phenomenal in this match, no pun intended. John Cena made AJ Styles look like $1,000,000. And not only that, during this period of time, I have the belief that during this period of time in 2015, 2016, John Cena was getting a lot of praise by a lot of the fans on the internet. Because if you really think about it, when John Cena first started, to gain popularity, or not really to gain popularity, but really when John Cena was first placed at the top, a lot of people liked him. But then over the years, the way that they were booking John Cena to win almost every match, a lot of people kind of resented that, and that was where the mixed reactions came for John Cena. And John Cena, at the end of the day, people talk about how they should have turned John Cena heel, but you need to really look at the bottom line. John Cena was a top merch seller, and that is the main reason as to why they did not turn this man heel. But when it comes to 2015 and 2016, John Cena is the pure definition of a workhorse because the matches that he had, when he won the United States title at WrestleMania 31 at Levi Stadium against Rusev, he would defend his U.S. title almost every week. They made that U.S. title feel just as important as Seth Rollins holding the WWE title. And almost every week, John Cena would defend his title against guys like Neville, a.k.a. Pac, or guys like Sami Zayn. Of course, he was still a part of NXT, and if you think about it, Sami Zayn was like the golden child of NXT. And, of course, he faced a guy like Kevin Owens, in which he lost clean, dead center in the ring, towards Kevin Owens, and was one of the best John Cena matches you could ever watch. I watched, actually, recently, Kevin Owens and John Cena at Elimination Chamber in 2015. It was a phenomenal match. I watched that match back. It still holds up. But AJ Styles and John Cena, man, this was by far the match that they had at SummerSlam was probably the best match that they had in their entire, trilogy. Because again, the back and forth, the psychology, the chemistry that both John Cena and AJ Styles had, both men made each other look good. John Cena made AJ Styles look good. John Cena made AJ Styles look good, and AJ Styles made John Cena look good. If you think about it, AJ Styles had a career debut. He had the debut year that everybody had wanted. And that's why, when I talk about guys like Kenny Omega, or a lot of other popular top guys that are outside of the WWE, go to the WWE, I always say, man, give him the AJ Styles treatment because WWE booked AJ Styles like $1 million. There was a little bit of a concern in the beginning when he was first paired with Chris Jericho and he lost to WrestleMania to Chris Jericho. But he had 2 banger matches with Roman Reigns on pay-per-view. And, of course, he had the matches with John Cena. And then, of course, he beat Jon Moxley, or Dean Ambrose as he was at the time, for the WWE title at Backlash the next month. And within 9 months of him being a part of the WWE, he already won the WWE title. Goes to show you that they definitely spoke highly of a guy like AJ Styles. And overall, this match was everything that it needed to be. The crowd played a huge role in this match. The crowd at Barclays Center, man, was off the freaking charts. Me being there from experience, being at the actual show at Barclays Center, bro, the atmosphere was nothing like it. They knew. The fans knew because think about this. Barclays Center, or New York, or Brooklyn, New York, as it is a smart mark city. Cities like New York, cities like Brooklyn, cities like Philadelphia, cities like Chicago, they are smart mark cities. And they knew how important this match was. And they had AJ Styles beat John Cena clean, dead center in the ring. That came to shock to everybody. And John Cena worked his ass off in this match. AJ Styles just looked so good in this match. And, bro, when he beat John Cena clean, the atmosphere and everybody was just like, yo, we had AJ Styles, man. The face of TNA beat John Cena clean in the middle of the ring. What a shocker. What a match. And AJ Styles and John Cena is this week's retro match of the week. But yeah, that was episode 23 of the WrestleHavoc podcast. We definitely talked about a lot of things right here on the show. But, of course, there's a lot of things happening in the realm of professional wrestling right now. Of course, we have Summerslam happening in a couple of weeks in Detroit. We got Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. We got, of course, Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor. We got a lot of things happening. And, of course, we're headed towards All In and All Out as well. And a lot of other things happening in the realm of professional wrestling. So, yeah, that was episode 23 of the WrestleHavoc podcast. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Push that bell for notifications and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc podcast, of course, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And, as the freaking referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays signing out. I'll see you guys later for the Raw review. Peace.